Hello, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. We got some stuff to talk about today, so I kind of just want to jump into it. So, first up, we have our first trailer for Army of Thieves, the movie that has been made because of reasons that I'm not entirely sure why, but it's here, it's happening. So if you remember this guy who's here to the left, he was in the army of what was that movie called? The Army of the Dead, I think it was called, the zombie movie that came out on Netflix, and he was the safe guy. Apparently, Netflix thought, oh my god, yeah, everybody's gonna love safe guy who knows how to open up safes. So we need to give him his own spin-off movie. I don't know. This trailer was I have no feelings towards it. I have no extremely negative feelings, but I also don't have any positive feelings either. It's just this is a movie that is going to exist, and I'm gonna be curious to see how well it does, because I was kind of surprised when I saw how well Army of the Dead did. So maybe I'm just totally disconnected, and this is gonna be like Netflix's biggest movie because everybody loved the safe guy. But I don't know. Let me know what you thought of the trailer. It wasn't terrible, but I'm just still kind of like asking why this movie exists. But next up, we also have a trailer for Ghostbusters Afterlife. So this movie looks interesting, to say the least. This one is an actual sequel to Ghostbusters. The 2016 Ghostbusters movie was a reboot, I believe, or was it not a reboot? I never saw it, so I can't really speak to it, but I feel like it was probably a reboot. But this is a straight up sequel to the original Ghostbusters, probably Ghostbusters 2 as well. I don't imagine they're going to be like, oh, no, the second Ghostbusters. Actually, no, because the store is at the end of this trailer. So yeah, no, this is a sequel to the first two Ghostbusters movies. And I think it looks interesting. Like, it looks okay. It doesn't really feel like a Ghostbusters movie, but I think that's okay. Like, I think that's a tone that was so of the time that I think trying to replicate that in the modern day is probably not going to go down as well. So I think basically just going, hey, let's do Stranger Things, but with Ghostbusters, I think that can work out well. And I thought this movie I think this movie looks pretty good. I'm interested to see how it's going to turn out. I like the director. Obviously, he's actually the son of the original Ghostbusters director. So there is a legacy here, obviously, since this is a sequel to Ghostbusters, but then there's also the legacy of his son coming back to direct this movie. So I'm into it. It looks good. So we'll have to see how it all plays out in the end. Next story. Dune has a new showrunner. So I'm gonna be real with you guys. I didn't even know that a Dune movie was happening. So, or not a movie, but a show. So, but apparently it had a showrunner, and then the showrunner left, and now they have a new one. So I didn't even know this, but I'm reading this from Variety. Variety has learned exclusively that Diane Adamu-John has boarded Dune: The Sisterhood in the role of writer, showrunner, and executive producer. John Spates had previously been attached to run the series, but he stepped down in November 2019 to focus on writing the script for the second of the Dune reboot films. Adamu-John most recently worked as an executive producer and writer on the Netflix horror series The Haunting of Bly Manor. Prior to that, she worked on shows such as Empire at Fox, The Originals and The Vampire Diaries at CW, and Medium and Crossing Jordan at NBC. So, I'll be honest, I'm not really familiar with much of her work at all, or any of her work, really. So, I can't really speak to her abilities, but I think The Haunting of Bly Manor, because I know everybody loved The Haunting of Hill House. Did people like The Haunting of Bly Manor? I'm honestly not sure what the consensus on that is. And then you have The Vampire Diaries, and the originals, which is like, okay, I can't speak to those shows either, but I imagine they're probably not that good. And then I can't speak to to Medium and Crossing Jordan either. So I guess, yeah, I'm just curious to see if this is the right pick for Dune, which, you know, is obviously going to have high expectations for anything Dune related. So I don't know. I'm not saying this is going to be bad or that you should necessarily be worried, but I just looking at her resume, I'm not sure if this is necessarily who they should be going for. But that being said, you know, if you've seen any of her shows, let me know. Let me know if she's any good. Because I know people definitely like The Haunting of Hill House. And actually, I do know that people also like Empire. So yeah, but even then, those shows aren't necessarily like these big fantasy epics, like sci-fi epics. So I don't even know if that would necessarily translate. So I guess we'll just have to see how that turns out. Next story, Emilia Clarke, she confirms her role in Marvel's Secret Invasion. So during an interview with Jimmy Fallon, she basically just confirmed that she is going to be in the show. We already knew that because it was reported in like the Hollywood Reporter or Variety or whatever, but it's nice to hear her confirm it. She didn't really give any more details, so there's not much to say, but just, yep. It is officially official that she is going to be in Secret Invasion. Next story, we have Michael B. Jordan, who is going to be producing or developing, also producing his own Black Superman series for HBO Max. So I'm reading this from Collider. Michael B. Jordan and his production company, Outlier Society, are developing their own Black Superman project for HBO Max that centers on the Val Zod incarnation of the character, Collider has exclusively learned. Sources say that Outlier Society has hired a writer who is currently working on the script, though we were unable to ascertain their identity. Though it was initially unclear whether the Val Zod project would be a movie or a limited series, sources have since reached out to clarify that as of right now, it is in fact being written as a limited series that Jordan will produce and possibly even star in, though he has yet to officially commit on the latter front. So this is kind of surprising to me because, so to be clear, this is not the project that was being talked about a few months ago where J.J. Abrams is going to be producing a Black Superman movie and Ta-Nehisi Coates is going to be writing it. This is a completely separate thing. And so, I mean, just to talk about this series on its own, just what is your interest in a Val Zod limited series? I mean, I'm definitely in. Like, that sounds interesting. Like, it definitely seems like DC is kind of now they're going to be trying to do they're going to be trying to emulate what the MCU is doing with their Disney Plus shows, where I think they're really going to be aiming for, you know, this show and the Green Lantern show and you know the Matt Reeves Batman related show. I think they want to create shows that are, you know, sort of elevated to the status of what a theatrical release for their DC properties will be. So I imagine that they're going to put a decent amount of money into this, and, you know, it's probably going to have really nice production values. And if Michael B. Jordan does in fact star in it, he's a great actor. So, I mean, I think he'll make a great Superman, although this is a Val Zod Superman, which I'm not super familiar with, but whatever. He's a great actor. I'm sure it would be great in it. But then this also then gets me thinking about that other Black Superman property where people were kind of talking about like, oh, it better not be Clark Kent because you can't have a black Clark Kent because he was white in the comics. Oh, if this is Val Zod, I mean, let me know how many other Black Supermen are there, but this definitely means that it is now more likely that Superman movie is in fact going to be a black Clark Kent. And I mean, listen, in my opinion, the skin color of Superman doesn't necessarily, like, it's not important to who the character is. So like, if you have an idea for a Clark Kent that is, has darker skin, and maybe you have an idea for, how that could play into the story, like, I think you can have a black Superman story that is about him being black that is still faithful to who the character is. So I'm personally okay with all of this. I'm not. I like, you can do interesting things with characters. You can change things up and make them fresh. But yeah, I'm interested in this. Let me know what you think about all of this stuff. Let me know what you think about my sort of thoughts on that Ta-Nehisi Coates, whatever, J.J. Abrams movie. And we're going to be moving on to the next story. Peter B. Parker will most likely be back for Into the Spider-Verse 2. So this is coming from an interview that Jake Johnson did with the movie Dweeb. Of course, Jake Johnson voiced Peter B. Parker in the first movie. So he says, "I've been working on a contract," he said. "I believe Peter B. Parker is making a return. All I know is that I heard nothing for the longest time, and I was very sad. I really loved playing Peter B. Parker. I would like to know what happens with Peter B. Parker. I think the way his journey ended in the first movie was very open-ended, so when I got word that they were working on a deal or figuring it all out, I thought I truly can't wait to see what the writers came up with." And yeah, so the fact that he's in negotiations to return means that they obviously want the character in the movie. So I mean, I guess we don't know if he's going to have as big of a role as he did in the first one, because he was a very prominent character in it, but we know that he will be back in some capacity, and I can't imagine that they're not going to strike a deal to have Jake Johnson come back. But yeah, I mean, I really love the character in the first movie, so I'm definitely excited to see him come back, and I'm just excited for this movie in general. I absolutely adored the first Into the Spider-Verse movie. So, but yeah, next story. There is a live-action Pokemon series in development at Netflix. So, it's coming from The Hollywood Reporter. A TV project based on the wildly popular trading cards and video games is in early development at the streaming channel, sources confirm. A writer's room led by showrunner Joe Henderson from Lucifer started staffing up about a month ago. So, yeah, Netflix is looking at making a Pokemon series. Now, I'm a bit confused by this, just because this seems like it's going to be something that's very hard to do. Because the thing with Pokemon is that they have their, like, cartoons and stuff, right? But it's a cartoon, so it's not going to be that expensive, and it's like aimed at kids, so it's okay to have just sort of a relatively niche Saturday morning cartoon audience. But a live action show, you're going to have to aim that at a more broad demographic so that it could gain the sort of viewership that's necessary to sustain a show like this. So I'm not sure. I mean, so obviously they made Detective Pikachu. That's what this picture is from, Detective Pikachu. And the thing about Detective Pikachu is that it wasn't a massive success. So it grossed $433 million, and obviously that's a lot of money, but I'm pretty sure the producers were kind of hoping for at least like 600 million plus, ideally like 800 million, especially with Pokemon being as big of an IP as it is. So I don't know that the general audience is there for a Pokemon movie or a Pokemon live action series. And I have to wonder if Netflix is going to be down to give it the budget that it's going to need. So I don't know. I'm not a Pokemon guy. I know people are like looking at this and like, oh, maybe they're going to actually do a series where we see like Ash or something going on the adventure to catch them all and compete in the tournaments. And I'm like, I don't know that this is going to have the budget that's sort of necessary to do all of that, but it'll be interesting if they find a way. So if you're a Pokemon fan, Let me know what you think about all this in the comments down below. Oh, and also, this also makes me wonder if there is going to be a Detective Pikachu 2, because I would imagine that Legendary had the live action rights when they signed the agreement with the Pokemon Company to do this, and this makes me wonder if they opted not to continue with a Detective Pikachu 2, which then sort of opened up the opportunity for them to talk to Netflix. So I don't know if that's the case. That's just kind of me speculating. But yeah, I do wonder also what this means for a Detective Pikachu 2. But yeah, let me know what you think about all that in the comments down below. Next story. Another pretty surprising story. Universal spends $400 million on new Exorcist trilogy starring Ellen Burstyn and Leslie Odom Jr. So this is coming from Variety. Universal is shelling out an eye-popping $400 million to buy a new Exorcist trilogy with plans to screen some of the films on Peacock, its new streaming service. In a coup, Ellen Burstyn, the Oscar-winning actress who first did battle with the devil in the 1973 original, there's a fucking fly here. Okay. Will reprise her role as Chris McNeil. David Gordon Green, the filmmaker of the studio's latest Halloween reboot, is directing the upcoming Exorcist franchise, which will be produced by Blumhouse. In an ironic twist, Blumhouse made a name for itself producing low-budget horror hits like Get Out and The Purge, which enjoyed capacious profit margins due to their paltry costs. Streaming has scrambled those economics. The first of the 3 Exorcist movies is expected to debut theatrically on October 13th, 2023. Subsequent installments have not been dated and will potentially land directly on Peacock. And of course, joining the cast is Leslie Odom Jr. of Hamilton and One Night in Miami acclaim, whose character tracks down Burstyn's after his child becomes possessed. So, this is kind of like that Pokemon story in the sense that I'm not sure if this was a smart move, because listen, The Exorcist, obviously the original, is one of the most iconic films of all time, but I don't know how much weight this brand carries in 2021. Like, $400 million? I don't even know if you're going to make $400 million back on this trilogy. I also have to wonder, like, how much of that is going to the movies themselves, because I mean, I'm sure a good chunk of that $400 million goes to buying the rights to The Exorcist to even be able to make the movies. But like, how much did that cost? Like, are they left with like $200 million to make 3 Exorcist movies? Like, you know, you should be able to make an Exorcist movie with like 10. So I don't know. I mean, but I will say that, you know, David Gordon Green coming to make it, he of course made the 2018 Halloween movie that, you know, I personally didn't really like that movie. I thought it was fine, but it was like, okay, more Halloween. It's not really doing anything interesting. But people did enjoy the movie, so I'm sure he can make a crowd-pleasing Exorcist movie. I just don't know if it's a good move on Universal's part. And then you look at the release strategy is interesting. So they want it seems like this article doesn't confirm it, but it seems like Universal is looking at maybe releasing the first one theatrically and then releasing its sequels onto streaming, like straight to Peacock, which is an interesting move because, you know, you release your movie theatrically, get people back into The Exorcist and hungry for The Exorcist, and then you release the sequels on Peacock so that people are invested, and then maybe they'll be like, oh, we got to get Peacock to watch the sequels. I mean, that's honestly an interesting approach, right? Like, because one of the things that I've noticed with streaming is that, and especially with Netflix, like, it's like nobody ever knows when something's coming out on Netflix. Like, a new movie could be out. Like, well, no, like, there are tons of movies that come out on Netflix, and I have no idea they exist. Like, people will be like, oh, have you seen Gloobalorp's Globalglop? It's this new movie on Netflix. It's really good. And I've literally never heard of it because Netflix doesn't market their movies. But honestly, I feel like there just isn't that much hype around any streaming service with surrounding their movies. Like they just don't advertise it really. I don't know. It's weird. So I do think that there is a certain a certain usefulness to the marketing of a theatrically released film that, it forces studios to like really put in the money to make people like see and know about their movies. So, I mean, this is an interesting strategy, right? Like to get people back into the Exorcist in theaters and then get those people that are already invested to then go to Peacock. So it's an interesting release strategy. Still don't think that $400 million is worth it for the Exorcist IP, but we'll see how that goes. Next story, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is filming. So Peyton Reed, he posted this picture to Twitter, basically saying like, we're filming now. So this is the first set photo. This is the bunny that Scott Lang gave his daughter in the first Ant-Man. And he's next to like a hazardous like vat of chemicals, I'm assuming. So this is in like a lab of some sort. I wonder if are they studying this bunny? Did his daughter do something that causes them to have to study her bunny? I don't know, maybe. Like maybe she's lost in the quantum realm or something. But yeah, it's filming. Not really much else to say, but that is the case. It is the reality of the situation that Ant-Man 3 is filming. I'm honestly not too sure what to think of this movie. I mean, to be honest, I haven't really loved the Ant-Man movies, but it has Kang. Like if you don't know, Kang the Conqueror, who was He Who Remains from the season finale of Loki. He is the main villain of this Ant-Man movie. It was like really weird when it was announced that they were going to be, well, we thought they were going to be introducing Kang in Ant-Man, but of course he got introduced in Loki. But even still, he seems like too big of a villain to put in an Ant-Man movie. So just on that front alone, I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to do with this. But yep, it's filming. So next story. Rosario Dawson, Ahsoka Tano herself, on Twitter, no, not on Twitter, on Instagram, she is teasing the casting for Ezra Bridger and Grand Moff Tarkin in her Ahsoka series. So, these two characters, well, actually, let me just pull up her post here. So, this is weird. She posted another person's post that is like a fan thing where we want Mina Masood and Lars Mikkelsen in the series. I'm a fan and this is my fan casting, please. You see these posts often where people are like, I want Emily Blunt and John Krasinski to be Sue Storm and Reed Richards, please. And then Emily Blunt is like, shut up, nerd. I don't want to be in your stupid comic book movie. But in this case, we're actually getting some, it's not confirmation, but we're getting someone who's actually involved in the project, recognizing this sort of this fan casting that fans are trying to conjure up. And I mean, I don't know, like this is by no means a confirmation, but it is something, and it does make it a lot more likely. But yeah, so these two characters are from Star Wars Rebels, which is, it was an animated Star Wars series. I haven't watched it yet. I'm actually in the middle of watching the Clone Wars, so I'll get to Rebels eventually. I'm doing like a chronological Star Wars rewatch, which is, no, the answer is no, I don't have a life. But yeah, and in doing this rewatch, I decided to watch the animated shows for the first time. So I have not gone into Rebels, so I can't speak to these characters, but I do know that Lars Mikkelsen actually did voice the character in the show. And by the way, yes, he is Mads Mikkelsen's brother. And Mena Massoud, he did not voice him in the series, I don't think, but he looks a lot like the character. And he was in Aladdin, if you if you recall that monstrosity of a movie. So I don't know. Whatever. They're actors. They're both good actors. So sure, put them in. I don't know. But yeah, this is weird. It is by no means confirmation, but it makes it a lot more likely that this will end up being the casting. And I mean, the Disney Star Wars TV shows are totally fine with like with like fan service and like doing stuff that the fans want, because I know the fans really wanted Rosario Dawson to be Ahsoka Tano, so they conjured that into reality. So why not this too? Let me know what you think about those castings in the comment section down below. Next story, Christopher Nolan. He's being courted by Netflix. So Variety, they did like a profile piece on Scott Stuber. This guy is I believe he's like the head of Netflix movies. And basically he was speaking about Christopher Nolan, and he basically said this: if and when he comes up with his new movie, it's about, can we be a home for it, and what would we need to do to make that happen? He's an incredible filmmaker. I'm going to do everything I can. In this business, I've learned you need to have zero ego. I get punched and knocked down and get back up. So that's what he said. And now I think what he's referring to when he says when he gets punched and knocked down, he gets back up, I think he's talking about some comments that Christopher Nolan made in an IndieWire interview in 2017. He had this to say about Netflix. Netflix has a bizarre aversion to supporting theatrical films. They have this mindless policy of everything having to be simultaneously streamed and released, which is obviously an untenable model in theatrical presentation. So they're not even getting in the game, and I think they're missing a huge opportunity. And then in another interview, he also said, this was an interview with Variety. I didn't write what year this was because I'm an idiot. I think it was later in 2017, but he said, I should have been more polite, admits Nolan. I said what I believe, but I was undiplomatic in the way I expressed it. I wasn't giving any context to the frankly revolutionary nature of what Netflix has done. It's extraordinary. They need appropriate respect for that, which I have. So what the thing here is that when Netflix courts filmmakers, and I'm just going to be upfront, I don't think Netflix is going to be able to get Christopher Nolan. And it's mainly because when Netflix courts filmmakers, they are, one of the big draws is that they are going to have full creative liberty on their projects. Netflix is generally of the mind of, yeah, sure, we'll give you some money and go do whatever you want. Like, I'm sure that's part of the reason why Zack Snyder they basically have Zack Snyder locked down to create a whole bunch of stuff. Like, he's obviously doing his Army of the Dead franchise, which I'm personally not a huge fan of, but he's also going to have his Rebel Moon franchise, which is Netflix is going to position as their Star Wars. So, and I'm sure a lot of that stems from his frustration with working in DC and having them meddle with his stuff and, all the stuff with the Snyderverse and the Snyder Cut. Like, I'm sure that's part of the reason why they were able to get Zack Snyder. Christopher Nolan, though, is one of the few filmmakers that has the power to literally do whatever he wants, and studios will allow him to do whatever he wants. Like, he is, honestly, I would reckon the only filmmaker with just having it being a Christopher Nolan movie alone means it's going to make a lot of money at the box office. Like, I honestly don't even think that some of the more legendary directors like Steven Spielberg have that power. Like, I really don't think that's the case, where Steven Spielberg is a name that people are drawn to, but Christopher Nolan is. So he already has the ability to go to whatever studio he wants to, and he's going to be able to make whatever he wants. And the thing about Netflix is, or the thing about Nolan also, is that he is a staunch believer and supporter of the theatrical experiences. He wants people to see his movies in the theater, and Netflix, they like to just make a movie and plop it onto their service. So I don't think Nolan is going to want to do he's not going to want to make a movie and then just have people watch it on their phones or on their laptops or on their TVs, or on their Nintendo 3DSs while they're taking a shit. I don't think they want. I don't think he's going to be down with that. So then again, I'm sure Netflix, they have done releases in the past where like Martin Scorsese really wanted The Irishman to be in theaters. So, they played it for 4 weeks in theaters, I think, before releasing it onto Netflix. But I would imagine that Christopher Nolan is going to be like, no, I want a theatrical release because my films need to be seen in the theater, and people need to have the theater going experience. And so he's probably going to want like the full 6 months that movies are usually in theaters before going on to onto home video service or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know because, and by the way, so if you don't know, the main reason why Christopher Nolan is kind of available is because after Warner Brothers or Warner Media, they decided to take all of their big Warner Brothers movies, and they decided to take them all and plop them onto HBO Max. And they did that without letting their producers or directors or even partners in like Legendary, for example. They did it without letting them know. And that really bothered them. And Christopher Nolan basically came out and said that he's probably done working with Warner Brothers. So he's kind of in the market now. And so obviously Netflix is going to do everything they can to get him. But again, I just don't know if he's going to want to make a movie unless it has the full theatrical experience. Now, again, like Scott Stuber, he said that they would do everything that they can to get him. Does that include giving his movie a full theatrical release? I don't know if it includes that. I don't know if they'd be down for that, but it'll be interesting to see. And I mean, I also do kind of have to respect Scott Stuber that he's like he's not going to get, he didn't get butthurt over his comments. He's just like, yeah, I don't care. He makes really good movies and they're really popular. Like, I want him making a movie for me. So I also do respect that mindset. But let me know what you think about all this. Do you think Netflix is going to be able to get Christopher Nolan? They clearly want to, but we'll have to see how that all turns out. Next story. Hawkeye has been slated for a November 24th release date this year. So I'm reading this from the Hollywood Reporter. Hawkeye, the Disney Plus show starring Jeremy Renner as the Avengers hero, has set a release date. The Marvel Studios show will bow on November 24th. The series also stars Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, the fan-favorite character who becomes a protege of Renner's Clint Barton. As audiences who have seen Black Widow know, Florence Pugh will also reprise her role as Yelena Belova. And so we didn't know when this was going to be, and this is going to premiere on November 24th. Now, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with this date. So, we reported last week that one of the Marvel, I think it was the vice president of Marvel Studios, she came out and said that both Miss Marvel and Hawkeye will premiere in 2021. And this is going to be, this is going to be on November 24th, and I believe this is going to be a 6-episode series. And so I don't think that there's just not going to be, well, hold on, I'm looking at a calendar right now. I should have done this before, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, no, there's no room for this to premiere in December, for Miss Marvel to premiere in December after Hawkeye ends, and then Book of Boba Fett is also going to be, it's also slated to be in December. So I don't think that they would want to have 3 of their premiere shows going on at the same time. Now, the thing is that if you take into account What If and Hawkeye, there is room for Miss Marvel to premiere in October, and for it to kind of all pan out, and it all like fit together. But then why would they announce Hawkeye for November and then later at some point announce Miss Marvel for October? It's all kind of weird, And by the way, even with this being the case, if Boba Fett is still in December of 2021, we're going to see Hawkeye and Boba Fett overlap. And I mean, I I mean, I don't think it would be that big of a deal for two of Disney Plus premiere shows, especially if it's both Marvel and Star Wars airing at the same time. But I think they probably want to avoid having three of those shows airing at the same time. But yeah, I mean, excluding all of the nonsense, I mean, I'm excited for this show. And I think November is a good. It feels like a good time for a Hawkeye show. I don't know why, but it just kind of feels good. And they also did release this image here that you're looking at. Entertainment Weekly released it, and I don't know if you can see it, but kind of in between Hawkeye and Renner, I don't know if that's like a Captain America shield or if it's a target. Now that I think about it, it's probably a target. It's like in the middle of Renner and Steinfeld, sort of to the bottom there. Never mind, that's probably a target. I don't think it's Cap shield, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the show. I know people specifically really like the Matt Fraction run of Hawkeye, and it seems like this is gonna kind of sort of be based off of that, from what I've seen and heard. So I don't really know exactly what it's about, but I know people are sort of suspecting that this is gonna be based on that run, and people really liked it. And I personally like the Hawkeye character. I know he kind of gets a lot of hate, but I think he's a good character. I enjoy Jeremy Renner in the role. I really like Haley Steinfeld. I imagine this is probably going to be a really fun show. So I'm excited for it. But we shall, unfortunately, have to move on to our next and final topic. Scarlett Johansson. Oh my gosh, what is I forgot to put in a story. That's crazy. I mean, I could edit this out, but I'm not going to. Okay, whatever. I don't. You know what? You guys are adults. You don't need a picture to know what I'm talking about. So our second to last story. This is a big show today. Commissioner Gordon, who was played by J.K. Simmons in Justice League, that character will be coming back. Being played by J.K. Simmons in the Batgirl movie that is being made for HBO Max. So this is coming from The Hollywood Reporter. J.K. Simmons is coming back to the Bat Beat. The Oscar-winning actor is in negotiations to reprise the role of classic Batman character Commissioner James Gordon in Batgirl, Warner Brothers feature for HBO Max that is casting up swiftly. So that's pretty interesting. So I mean, not only is it big news that J.K. Simmons is in fact coming back as Batgirl, or as Commissioner Gordon, but this also kind of confirms that Batgirl is in fact in the DCEU. We were, at least I've been kind of wondering if it was in the DCEU or if it's kind of in its own universe, sort of like the Batman, or maybe it's in the Batman universe as well, but. No, this is in the DCEU proper, and Gordon is coming back as Barbara Gordon's father in this movie, presumably. I wonder if they're going to do the thing where Gordon doesn't know that his daughter is Batgirl, and he's going to be like, "Oh, Barbara, you're such a good girl. You never get in trouble. You never do anything wrong. You're just studying or whatever." There's usually that dynamic with Gordon and Barbara. So I wonder if they're going to do that. But yeah, I like J.K. Simmons. I love J.K. Simmons, obviously, but I liked him as Commissioner Gordon, even though, I'm honestly trying to remember. Did he even have a bigger role in Zack Snyder's Justice League? I know he had a few more scenes, but I don't think it was necessarily he wasn't like a main character or anything. But I remember I enjoyed what I saw of him, so I'm definitely down with him coming back. Yeah. So okay, next story that I actually prepared an image for: Scarlett Johansson. She's coming after Disney. So Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney over Black Widow's streaming release. So this is coming from the Wall Street Journal. Scarlett Johansson, star of the latest Marvel movie Black Widow, filed a lawsuit Thursday in Los Angeles Superior Court against Disney, alleging her contract was breached when the media giant released the film on its Disney Plus streaming service at the same time as its theatrical debut. Ms. Johansson said in the suit that her agreement with Disney's Marvel Entertainment guaranteed an exclusive theatrical release, and her salary was based in large part on the box office performance of the film. Disney intentionally induced Marvel's breach of agreement without justification in order to prevent Ms. Johansson from realizing the full benefit of her bargain with Marvel, the suit said. So, yeah, so obviously this movie was supposed to come out in I believe in 2019, or at the very least in 2020, and it got delayed a bunch until, just about a month ago. It finally came out, and it, in its delays, it eventually got a day and date release on Disney Plus with its premiere access thing where you pay $30 to get it, and the box office at the same time. But what it's saying here is that the problem with that is that in Scarlett Johansson's contract, she was supposed to get, or she got a portion of the box office revenue. I would imagine it's probably 5% of the box office revenue of Black Widow. And, actors will do that often where they'll take either no pay or a lower pay as far as a base salary goes. And they go, no, I want a percentage of the box office, so that, you're kind of taking a gamble where if the movie does badly, then you don't get paid as much. But if the movie does really well, then you get a really good payday. And that's sort of that's just sort of what the deal that a lot of actors make in their contracts. And that is the deal that Scarlett Johansson made. And Disney basically went, ha 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 ha, oh, ScarJo, what? We don't, she's not gonna stand up to us. She's not gonna do anything. We can just release this on Disney Plus at the same time, cannibalizing our box office revenue. She's not gonna do anything. And they were, I guess, wrong. and now she's suing them. Yeah, I mean, we saw this with Warner Media and what they did with their HBO Max thing, where they took all their Warner Brothers Studios movies and put them day and date on HBO Max. Now, I don't believe Warner Media got sued. I could be wrong, but I don't believe they got sued by anybody. But they definitely did anger people to the point that Christopher Nolan, like I said, probably is going to be working in it anymore. Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune, was also really upset at them. Legendary, their partner, was really upset at them. So we saw Warner Media get in hot waters after that whole thing. But I would have never expected Disney also did that same thing. And now this makes me wonder if they did that with other movies as well. But now in the case with Scarlett Johansson, they're actually getting sued for it. And I have to say, Scarlett Johansson is absolutely in the right for doing this, because here's the thing. I am totally fine with Disney and Warner Media experimenting with the different release strategies for their movies, right? We're in a pandemic, but even more than that, just in general, I think it's cool that audiences could potentially moving forward have the option of, yes, the movie theater is available, but also give us the option to stay home and watch these movies. So, I've been totally down with them experimenting with this, but you can't just breach people's contracts. They had to have, or at least they should have sat down with their partners and with their actors and be like, hey, can we come to some kind of agreement? I know we had this deal where you're going to get a percentage of the box office revenue, but can we come to some kind of agreement where we can pay you a flat fee? And I'm sure Scarlett, she would have probably been like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. It's a pandemic, we can work this out. But apparently they didn't even go to her, which is insane. And yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, I am a fan of these different release strategies, but you can't just breach your contract like this. Yeah, of course you're gonna get sued. So good on Scarlett. Yas queening it up, doing her thing, getting her money that she deserves. And yeah, we're gonna have to see how this goes. Like, is Disney gonna settle, or is this actually gonna go to court? Does this mean that Scarlett Johansson is probably, like, I know she said that she's done playing Black Widow, but it's always been one of those things where it's like, I don't know, like this is the Marvel like fake death universe where, you know, characters die and come back constantly. So I mean, it honestly, like, I would have been surprised if at some point Scarlett came back for another movie, especially like with the multiverse opening up. I'm like, yeah, like I could totally see Scarlett coming back at some point. Probably not anymore. Like, I would imagine that this is going to end up burning a bridge with Disney. So we're going to have to see how this all ends up. But either way, this was a big show, a lot of topics, but I didn't really want, I thought that all of these were important. I didn't necessarily want to cut any of these out. Yeah, let me know what you think of any or all of the topics that I've discussed in the comments below. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff to talk about, so I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below. And bye. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.